Midnight on the East African savanna. The fire has burned low. The stars are sharp against a moonless sky. Then it comes, a roar so deep it vibrates through rib cages and wooden posts alike. Somewhere beyond the outer barrier, a lion is close. Hyenas answer from different directions, their calls overlapping like signals in the dark. Something presses against the thorn fence. Branches shift. Livestock shuffle nervously. Inside the enclosure, a mother pulls her child closer, and then she lies back down. She sleeps. Not because the danger isn't real, but because the structure surrounding her is stronger than fear itself. 800 years ago, surviving a single night in many parts of Africa required more than courage. It required architecture designed with the mind of a predator in mind. Drop a modern person into that same wilderness with no tools, no training, and no understanding of animal behavior, and survival would be uncertain. Yet for thousands of years, entire communities not only endured, they thrived. They raised children, protected livestock, built cities, and created defensive systems so effective that many of their principles are still studied today. Africa presented a unique challenge. In other regions of the world, expanding settlements eventually pushed large predators away. But across the vast savannas, forests, highlands, and river systems of Africa, humans and apex predators remain neighbors. Lions capable of bringing down massive prey with explosive force. Leopards agile enough to climb tall trees in seconds. Hyenas with bone-crushing jaws and coordinated pack strategies. Crocodiles lurking at nearly every permanent water source. Protection could not rely on a simple wall. It required understanding how each predator hunts, how it evaluates risk, and how it responds to uncertainty. That understanding shaped some of the most remarkable defensive structures in human history. In western Kenya, the stone complex of Thimlik Ohinga stands as a powerful example. Built centuries ago, its dry stone walls rise more than 4 meters high without mortar. Each stone was carefully selected and placed to interlock with those around it. At first glance, height appears to be the primary defense. But height alone does not stop a determined lion. The real brilliance lies in subtler details. The uppermost stones were deliberately uneven and slightly unstable. When weight pressed down, they shifted just enough to create doubt. Lions are powerful, but they are also strategic. Every hunt costs energy. An unstable landing surface introduces risk. Risk reduces reward. And predators that depend on conserving strength will often abandon an uncertain attempt rather than gamble on injury. Some researchers suggest that certain stones were chosen because of the distinctive sound they produced when disturbed, effectively transforming the wall into an early warning system for sleeping families. Farther west, in what is now Nigeria, the earthworks of the Kingdom of Benin formed one of the largest barrier systems ever constructed. When early European visitors encountered these massive defensive embankments in the 15th century, they were stunned by their scale. The walls and moats stretched across thousands of kilometers, creating layered protection around urban centers. While these fortifications served political and military roles, they also established predator-controlled zones. An animal entering outer territory would face multiple obstacles before reaching inner compounds. Elevated sleeping structures inside the city provided additional security. Defense was no longer just a family effort, it was an urban system. In southern Africa, the stone city of Great Zimbabwe represents another extraordinary achievement. Its great enclosure features towering dry stone walls reaching up to 11 meters high. The stones were stacked without mortar, yet the structure remained stable centuries later. Builders angled each layer slightly inward, distributing weight and strengthening the entire wall. The circular layout reduced blind corners where predators might hide. Elevated platforms inside provided secure sleeping spaces. Every design choice reflected generations of observation and refinement. This was not random stacking of rock. It was defensive engineering. But not all protection relied on towering stone. Across the savannas of East Africa, many communities developed living fortresses from thorny acacia branches. Certain species, including Acacia mellifera, were selected for specific qualities. Their thorns grow densely and interlock in patterns that create formidable natural barriers. Branches were harvested when flexible, woven tightly together, and arranged in multiple layers. Even if one section weakened, surrounding layers reinforced it. Modern conservation initiatives inspired by these traditional thorn enclosures have recorded dramatic reductions in nighttime livestock losses to lions, demonstrating that the principles remain effective. The brilliance of these enclosures extended beyond physical strength. Lions often test barriers with cautious paw strikes before committing to an attack. A painful but non-lethal prick from dense thorns can convince a predator that the effort outweighs the reward. The barrier does not need to overpower the lion. It only needs to make the lion reconsider. In the Ethiopian highlands, communities face different challenges. At elevations where temperatures drop sharply and oxygen is thin, natural rock shelters became defensive assets. Entrances were narrowed or angled to limit access. Boulder placements disrupted pack coordination, preventing hyenas from attacking in groups. Sleeping areas were positioned deeper inside, sometimes with narrow escape routes that allowed humans to pass but blocked larger animals. Here, protection depended on terrain manipulation rather than constructed walls. Along the Bandiagra escarpment in Mali, the Dogon people adopted a strikingly different strategy. Instead of defending ground level, they moved above it. Dwellings carved into the cliffs placed families high beyond the reach of terrestrial predators. Access routes required careful climbing using handholds carved into rock faces. Granaries were built in elevated niches, protecting food supplies from animals and environmental threats alike. Sleeping hundreds of meters above the ground removed entire communities from the nightly range of lions and hyenas. Altitude became security. In Central Africa's dense forests, where visibility was limited and ambush was common, some groups built upward into the canopy. Elevated platforms integrated with living trees provided sleeping areas above ground-based predators. Access points could be modified or withdrawn at night, leaving gaps impossible for large animals to cross. Some platforms connected through branches, allowing movement between trees without descending to the forest floor until daylight returned. Defense in the forest relied on vertical space rather than horizontal barriers. Across these diverse regions, savanna, forest, highland, escarpment, a unifying principle emerges. The most effective defenses did not depend solely on brute force. They depended on psychology. Lions conserve energy and avoid unnecessary risk. Leopards assess stability before leaping. Hyenas rely on coordinated pack movement. Crocodiles depend on surprise at predictable water points. Ancient builders studied these behaviors closely. They learned when predators were most active, how they approached prey, and what made them retreat. Every unstable stone, every thorn barrier, every angled entrance exploited specific instincts. This knowledge was refined over generations. A design flaw could mean disaster. A successful structure meant children survived to adulthood. Over centuries, experimentation became tradition. Tradition became expertise. Modern wildlife experts now examine many of these historic approaches when developing non-lethal deterrents that protect both people and animals. The goal today is coexistence, reducing conflict while preserving ecosystems. In many ways, these efforts echo the strategies perfected long ago. What makes these achievements remarkable is not only that they worked, but that they worked consistently. Families slept through nights filled with predator calls. Livestock survived until morning. Cities expanded in regions where apex predators remained dominant. Human communities adapted without eliminating the wildlife around them. Imagine that same savanna night once more. The lion approaches, silent and deliberate. To test the barrier. Stones shift slightly. Thorns press back. The structure feels uncertain. The predator calculates risk. Injury could mean starvation. The cost is too high. It turns away. Inside, a child dreams. A fire glows softly. The architecture holds. Long before steel fences and motion sensors, before concrete walls and electric lights, people engineered safety using stone, wood, earth, and deep ecological understanding. They did not conquer the wilderness by removing its dangers. They learned its patterns and designed around them. That is the real story. Not of fear but of intelligence. Not of domination but of adaptation. In one of the world's most challenging environments, ancient African communities transformed vulnerability into security, and turned the act of sleeping into one of humanity's quietest, greatest triumphs.